I would like to introduce you a new topic today. So the title will be The New Man Facing the Emerging Astral Storm. But before, addressing this topic, as always, we want to give you a little message. So this content is free, but if you find it useful, meaningful, please take a moment to like, to share, to comment. It helps the message to reach more people. It's very important for us, but again, it's a free content. And beside all of those video, what is very, very, very important, it's for you to read Charles' book, so Vibrational Psychogenetics, which explores this theme, this topic more in the granularity. And besides the book and the content, it's very important to book a one-to-one consultation with Charles, because it's very important to move into action. So, the new man facing the emerging astral storm. So, as always, we're beginning with some definition. So, I try to put some definition in this astral storm. So, the astral represents the convergence of today's crisis: political, ecological, economics, and existential crisis. The new man, it's someone who sees through the surface. He holds a multidimensional vision, aware of visible and invisible forces at play. He stays centered even in turbulence, and he understands the structure and laws of the system. And he does not, it's a very important thing, he does not, under it, but he's able to be an engineer of reality. So, as always, again, two quotes. The first quote from Albert Einstein: "Out of chaos, find simplicity. From discord, find harmony." And the second quote is from Carl Jung: "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." So it's very interesting, quotes, because it's typically what kind of instructions that you provide. So today, more than ever, we see all of those, astral storm, economical, war in different regions of the world. We can feel, this astral going more and more, strongly in our life. So, Charles, that will be my first question. In this growing storm, what posture, what action, what responsibility belongs to the new man today?
Well, first of all, a person who is awakened to systemic reality doesn't look at, or doesn't observe what you call the astral emergence or the reality of the events going on actually. He observes it in a different way, in the sense that he knows that the reason for those manifestations are because of the lower consciousness of man. In other words, man lives in lives from a consciousness which is inferior and psychological. So until man develops a capacity to observe systemic reality, the mechanism, he will live those kinds of things. You see? There won't be any harmony. See? Or it will be very short-lived. Because there's always something, there's always desire, there's always all kinds of pulsions that man lives, that incites him to make war or make disharmony or live disharmony. So because of that, there will be disharmony, there will be war, there will be problems between men, until he gradually awakens to that reality, to systemic reality. Why? Because he's always disinformed. You see? He's always disinformed by his programs, the way he was programmed. He has automatisms. He obeys the all kinds of automatisms. What some people call agents, who have a mission of automatism, or they have a mission to incite man to do something. A habit is that. It's the same thing. So until men or human beings realize the source of their automatism, their thoughts, or the form of their thoughts, they will be subjected to that kind of programs which are not adjusted to systemic reality.
And I was mentioning, the new man, facing all of that. The new man, he has a kind of role, or he must be, neutral, centered in all of that. When you read all the religion book and so on, they are expecting, a messiah, a messenger from God, from God, or for other, forces. But the new man in all of this chaos, he has a kind of a role, or he must be, a kind of a part of all of that.
Yeah. The Messiah is within each individual. You see? So he has to awaken to a certain reality to realize that he is the Messiah. In other words, each individual has to evolve enough to create harmony, to create peace of mind and peace of between individuals, between human beings. Otherwise, it will continue. The difference is that involutive man, or a person who functions psychologically, will suffer from all that, physically and mentally, even if he's not in the war, or he will suffer psychologically. So, but a person who is awakened won't suffer psychologically from those events, because he knows that it's as if human beings need those events to awaken. You see? You need to suffer enough to realize that the way you think, the way your consciousness is functioning is not adjusted. You see? People believe in all kinds of different religion, and they fight over it. See? So that's what's going on right now. Ideologies, whether it's in Russia or in Iran and all that. It's a difference of ideology, of beliefs, you see? Each nation believes in certain things. What is that? It's programmed, you see? And it's programmed since thousands of years. See, Russian function in a certain way, in a certain mental way. You see, because they're influenced by all the generation before. Before the advent of the structure of information that we have today, it was very tight, the village and all that. It was very restrained. So the mentality became, more and more encrusted in the memory, you see, and it's purely disinformation, you see. So religions or certain beliefs, it's all disinformation. It's all a perception of reality, but filtered through programs and filtered through involutive consciousness or psychological consciousness. So we don't have the time of day, you see, until we awaken to that reality, to systemic reality. In other words, to develop a capacity of observation of the mechanism, of the automatisms that we are, that we function by. You see? Human beings they don't have the faintest idea how automatized they are. You see? To awaken is to realize how much automation there is, we are subjected to. And until we awaken to that reality, we suffer from those automatisms because we can't stop them. We can't do anything about it. You see? We identify to that. That's the problem. Human beings identify to what's going on their mental, in their thoughts. See? They identify to the value of their thoughts. While the value of their thought or the form of their thought is filtered by their programs, the way they were programmed. See? So they have the capacity to think, they have the capacity to think, but they are subjected to the filters of their programs, which color their thoughts. That's the problem. See? We can't stop thinking, but we can observe thoughts in a different way. We can observe the automatisms of thoughts. And that's the beginning of the awakening. And it's not, it can't be understood only. One has to realize the automatisms of the thoughts, the thought process, to be able to start observing reality like that.
And based on your example, I was thinking about the automatisms. You can find in Russia, in Iran, in Israel, even when they are doing some prayer. They're moving their head or their body, but they are proud. They are proud of it. They call it tradition. They call it transmission, and it's weird because from one hand, they are very proud of it. They say, yes, the transmission tradition, we must preserve it. But from the other hand, they are expecting a messiah from outside. It's kind of, kind of paradox to say I'm proud of what I'm doing right now, but I'm kind of knowing that it's not the truth because I'm waiting for this kind of awakening. Yeah?
Well, they know in a certain way, but they interpret that reality. The Messiah is the awakening. You see? So they know they are not, in a certain way, they know they are not awakened, but they have no consciousness of why or anything else. They're misinformed all the time by their programs. You see? And the more tight the society is, and in the way they think, especially small villages or clans or all that, the more the lack of liberty an individual has to liberate themselves from that kind of programs. You see, it's very tight. Even people who come from those from Iran or Afghanistan or Russia or whatever, they come in another culture, they have a tendency, of course, because they're programmed like that, to keep their cultural and their ideas and all that, and that's what creates zizany or disharmony. You see, but they have no idea why. You see, they just follow, they just obey to those automatism or those programs. That's what creates problems between humans, you see? Because in the past there was no, much less communication between humans, see? So we have the remnants of the past today where there's a lot of communication. So it opens up, okay? But you still have those ideas, those concepts, those old concepts of the clan and very tight beliefs, all kinds of beliefs like that. So in an era of communication and of technological advancement, it's dangerous, see? Like we're seeing right now. See, with Iran and Israel and Russia and see. So human beings are playing with fire right now, more than ever before, because of the technological advancement and technological communication, more communication. So everything is materializing. So it's a cleanup. It cleans, you see, because it makes people realize that if we go too far, if man go too far, it's going to be the end of mankind, or most of mankind, see. So think twice, or you know.
And some people are calling it the Great Reset, from the conspirational theory, but it kind of resonates on what you said. Like it will, kind of clean up. They say with a lot of Great Reset. It's this kind of Great Reset. It's a fight that human beings are going too far. They're not evolving.
Yeah, exactly. They will go too far. They have a tendency to go too far, see? So the reset is the realization that you can't function like that. You can't live harmoniously like that. So they have to suffer, human beings have to suffer to realize that, you see? Once there's individual that think otherwise or function otherwise than that, differently, and they talk in public like I do, and that way the communication is more, it's all over the world, you see. It's faster and it's more efficient. So people who suffer a lot will have a tendency to look for a solution. So eventually each individual will realize that they are subjected to programs and automatism, and just like a robot. Man is a biological robot, but he doesn't know about it. See? Everything is automatic. But he thinks he creates all that. He identifies to that, yeah. See? He identifies to his thoughts. He identifies himself to programs and everything. He thinks that's him. That's his identity. See? He's used to that. So that's the mystery of man. See? As long as he can't see over that, beyond that, he's subjected to suffering psychologically and physically. So a person that is awakened is not affected by all that. See? He can observe it, he can, you know, if he lives in Iran right now, he's out of Iran. He's going out of Iran. You know what I mean? Even in Israel, he's going to be out. He's not going to stay there. He's going to see it before it happens. See what I mean? First of all, a person who is awakened wouldn't live there because of the oppression, the religious oppression and all that. See? So he will survive. A man that's a human being that's awakened will survive, because survival is not only physical; it's mental. Yeah. Yes.
Yes. Sorry, because that was my next question. So the human, he's not a savior. He will not try to help everyone. He will just flee. If we feel he will be so connected to concrete reality that he will be able to see what's the next move and say, okay, I'm moving from this. Okay, because in the supramental, or it's a different religion or different doctrine or dogma. The people that have this feeling that they need to save, the other people, to inform them, to warn them.
They have a mission.
They have a mission. There's a lot of missionary to.
You got to watch out about missions. The need to speak, to talk about a reality, is different from a mission. It's a necessity for a man or a person that's awakened to talk about that reality is a necessity. It's not the same thing. It's not a mission to save everybody. You know what I mean? It's a very long-term endeavor. Even if there's very little individuals that are awakened, it will bear fruit in the future. So it doesn't matter. You like me. I do my job. I do what I need to do. That's it. What I need to speak. What I need to inform. You see? You can't shut up. You know what I mean? Keep it for yourself. It doesn't work like that. And it's not a question of convincing others. It's a question of diffusing, the information, or materializing the information, that's all. To create for oneself a certain environment. It's not the same thing. You don't want to save the world. People will have to live what they have to live. I can't speak to people who believe all kinds of things that are not adjusted to reality. They'll kill me, If I try to convince them, no. I'm not a martyr. No. Yes,
you are not like the Christ,
No.
You try to inform everyone and
no. 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 You save yourself, and you help others that are more conscious to organize to survive mentally and physically. So. We live in very troubled times because of the two aspects of information, the speed of information, quality of information, and those old programs, those unconsciousness, you know, all kinds of beliefs which are not adjusted to reality, which are interpretation of reality, in fact. Intuitive interpretation, but psychological interpretation. All religions are based on the intuitive perception of reality, of systemic reality. But it's interpreted, you know. It's people create entities to their image. So it's not God that created man to his image, it's man that created God to his image. It's reversed.
It's a kind of the first, anthropomorphism, then,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Purely anthropomorphism.
And you mentioned the fact that today, with the acceleration of technology, we can feel the urge, of this change, the urge of this, what we call, the astral storm. But how can we explain that today, with all the information that we can have access, we are still some people with a very, very hard dogma that don't want to change? Because, for example, in YouTube, we can find your content, but we can find, some religious content,
Mm-hmm.
so that's spreading like the virus, Some people in Canada, I don't know, maybe, but in France, just because they were watching, some video on YouTube, they are able, to take a plane, to be, indoctrinated in Syria, to join the religious movement. So it's kind of paradoxal that today we have a lot of information, a lot of science, revolution, but on the other hand, some people are using the same tools that you and I, but they are still stuck in their, mentality.
Yeah, it's normal because they're programmed like that, and I explained it at the beginning. They are programmed in this way from generation to generation. Very hard for a person to awaken by himself because of that. Because he's subjected to all that memory, all those programs. See? All that collective influence from generation to generation. See? Because of lack of information. You see? And it still persists. And then you have that other part, which is a lot of technological ways to channel information. But, we're between the two. There's two forces. You see? There's the old guard, then there's the technological guard. In the sense that they can people with those kinds of ideas, they can inform through YouTube and all that. So they use the technological capacity. And then there's people like me who talk in a different way about a different reality that use that kind of information or capacity to channel information. You see, so we're in between. We are in that time. See? The old time and the new time is the time, now time. It's the both forces. Like I said, technological advancement with all ideas like that is very dangerous. We can see it today. See? So, see, you give some matches to a child, watch out, he's going to burn the house down eventually. It's the same thing. It's primitive. So, ideas, very powerful.
And how do you explain this gap between, how far we are in the technological perspective and on the, again, other side, still majority of men are stuck in the very primitive way of thinking, We have an exponential curve already in technology, but we are not that fast the evolution for the multidimensional awakening. How can you explain the gap between technology and the current...
well, there has to be a gap somewhere, in the sense that the old guard, the old way of thinking is still in power, in a sense, through programs, through influence of different generations. That's what programs are, It's not a person doesn't program himself like that. The information comes from somewhere. You see, the influence is from mainly the parents, but then the grandparents, the other generation. So as long as there's not sufficient awakening, people will evolve like that. You see, totally unconsciously. An unconscious person is a person who has no idea of the mechanics, vibrational mechanics of the system. That's what unconsciousness is. See? Consciousness is not only knowing about things, or information. It's the quality of information. See? Once you know the mechanics of reality, then you can apply it in your life. Otherwise, you can't apply it. You're subjected to the same mechanism. Just like an animal, Man is more evolved than an animal, but he still has a lot of animal in him. We can see it in the wars and what man does to man. So that's total unconsciousness. See? What the consciousness that man lives right now and is a transitory consciousness between his animal consciousness and his real consciousness or future consciousness, more evolved consciousness, or is systemic consciousness. Has to be life has to be lived in more scientific way at certain time, a certain. Otherwise, you're subjected to life, in all kinds of ways, and you just it's all imposed on you. Instead of you, once you're conscious of the system, being able to use the system. That's real consciousness or meta consciousness. the new man or the future man will use the system instead of being used by the system. You know. So he will be he won't be as subjected to automatism of the programs of the system. You see, he will use what he needs, what he doesn't need, what the system or the automatism that are imposed on him and he doesn't need. You know, he will just won't activate them because of his consciousness, through his observation of reality, of systemic reality. So.
And again, thanks to someone who are already, you know, in this multidimensional, you know, perspective. Because, you know, in this kind of, you know, astral storm, okay, so the new man is not a savior, but do you think that we will have a lot of more and more of people who will try to reach your content, you know, with this explosion of violence, explosion of war? Do you think that we will have more and more people who will try to seek the reality?
Yes, because they will have the more and more affinity, or they will search for a solution. People who are in contact with my content or information, they seek a solution to their problems. And it's not, you can't have a psychological solution to a psychological problem. You know, it has to be something else. You have to evolve to something else. A more elaborate consciousness or a meta-consciousness to really have an effect on all that. It's a question of action. It's a question of practice. It's not a question of intellect, in the sense that to understand and try to go or try to through desire of it to evolve by desire. You see, it's a question of action, and yet then you have the result of that. You have the effects of. So, if you listen to people, they talk in a psychological way. They express themselves in a very polarized way. Okay, and when they speak like that, they nourish their programs or the way they are programmed. You see, it's a vicious circle. And once they're in contact with systemic reality, then they awaken, or they start awakening to something else. They have a tendency to realize what kind of predicament or mental predicament they were in. It's a question of realizing that state of mind, that way of being. Once you're in contact with another reality through somebody else, then if it fits, if you're ready for it, well, you realize something, that it could be a solution to your problems. So, otherwise, it won't be interested, because a person won't be sufficiently evolved in his experience to not to understand, but to realize something. about that reality.
Why the words that we are using are so important? Because some people would say, oh, it doesn't matter, the words that I will use or the way that I will speak. The thing that is more important, it will be my action or the way I'm doing it. Why the words that we are using are so important in order to...
Because the words we use are the results of the thoughts we believe in. See? And once if you are not conscious of where the form of the thoughts are come from, if you identify yourself to your thoughts, you think that you are creating those thoughts, then you're in big trouble. In the sense that you will speak in that way, and there's nothing new in there, in the sense that you're repeating your influence to talk in a certain way by certain values, certain way of thinking, believing, and all that. You're influenced by the others, by the collective. You know? So when you speak like that, through those beliefs, you maintain yourself in those beliefs because you speak them. You speak about those. The action of speaking is very strong, it's very powerful, but people don't realize that. Sorry? They try to use it in a, let's say, to try to use polarity, positive thinking and all that. Sure, it works up to a certain point, you know, because it's different, and the person tries to get rid of negative thoughts through positive thoughts. But once you do that, with positive thoughts, you nourish the whole system, the polarity, see? And then you won't be as able to absorb negative things in your life. You know, actually, to liberate yourself, it's a question of absorbing negative events, the way you absorb it, the way you deal with it. In other words, it's not the positive. It's easy, you know, but it takes a certain way of looking at reality to do that. Otherwise, you won't be able to do that. It's an apprenticeship, you know, of observation, of observing the mechanism of systemic reality. That's the key. Otherwise, we're doomed. Because history repeats itself all the time. Personal history as history of nations, between nations. Why does it repeat? Because there's programs, there's no change in the way of looking at reality. So people are insecure because of that. Insecurity breeds violence eventually. So.
And when we consider this reality, is it correct to say it's not a war of men, it's a war of program?
Yeah, it's a war of ideologies, yeah, of beliefs. And men are just, they follow that, or they're the victim of their ideologies. Imagine. In other words, they're programmed the way they're programmed. But you have to realize that you're subjected to programs, to habits, to automatisms, to realize that. Otherwise, no, I'm not a robot. I don't, I decide everything, Man doesn't decide nothing, actually. It's all pre-decided in a certain way. So there's no free will. Once you're conscious of how people are programmed, there's no free will. Individuals are in the will of the program. But they identify the program, so that's their own will. That's the illusion of free will. It's because they identify to how they're programmed, their personality. See? So they think they're free. They think they decide everything because they identify to program. That's the illusion. That's the disinformation.
And what about the new man? Does it have free will?
It's free. It's not the same thing. See? He has the will of his intelligence. If you want to call it free will, that free will, be my guess. Once he's in the intelligence of what's going on, what can observe, then he has the will to follow through, the will of action. But he doesn't decide. See? It's the fact that he's intelligent of what's going on, that he has no how can I say? He has no he just has to do it. He has no choice. Because he's intelligent of what's going on, he has no choice but to live the action. So that's real will. There's no will. The will comes from being in the intelligence of what's going on. If he knows what the mechanisms, he has no choice but to act on it. There's no doubt. There's no in between. Psychologically, there's always doubt. There's always in between. Because a person who lives psychologically doesn't know about. He's not conscious of systemic reality. The mechanisms of reality, of systemic reality. Once you're conscious of that, or meta-conscious of the mechanics, that's the way it works. It's like gravity, So he has no choice but to, like man, to build a plane that will be a certain technological way so he can fly. Anti-gravity with the lift and all that, because he knows the mechanics of flight. See? It's all a question of being in the intelligence of the thing, anything, whether it's the flight, whether it's cars, whether anything. So you can build it, and use it. So it's the same thing. So you can call that free will if you want, but I don't see it as free will. I see it as a fatality. It's once you see it, you can't do anything else. See? So it's not. How would I say that? It's not. You have no merit psychologically. So you can see it, you act on it. That's it. You're in the intelligence of it, you act on it. It's not like psychological intelligence where you flatter yourself with that. It's a capacity. You developed it, and that's it. People have a hard time understanding or grasping that aspect, But that's the only freedom we have. We're free when we adjust to systemic reality. That's what it means. Okay? But involutive man, a psychological man, is not adjusted to systemic reality. That's the problem. That's why he lives what he lives. That's why the events keep coming. You see, or like you say, the astral just materializes, and it will materialize until they become intelligence of reality, of systemic reality, individually.
And what you just said, it's hard to realize, because from a psychological way of seeing the world, we need to be in control, and the fact that you said you have no choice, from the pure psychological point of view, it's totally the opposite of free will. Like free will, I am in control.
Of course, yeah.
I do have a choice, and what you just said, it's a
yeah.
contrary,
Yeah.
So it's up to.
Well, you have a choice and that's the way people look at free will. You have a choice. Actually, you don't have a choice. You know what I mean? There's one that's better than the other. There's one way that's better than the other. So what is choice? You know what I mean? So you choose a sweater, okay, a certain color. Okay, a certain color will fit better with you according to, your facial or the color of your skin or the color of your hair, whatever. See? So you don't have a choice once you see that color is perfect. It's because you can't see that color is perfect that you have the choice between the red one and the green one. See? So it's an illusion. People live in doubt. So the only absolute they touch a little bit is religion. It's through religion belief. That's why it's appeasing to them in a certain way. Because more absolute. But it's forced on them, But they need that. Same thing with a person who awakens to systemic reality. It becomes absolute. So It's not a belief. It's a in French we say constatation. We are aware of. It's clear as day.